So now we've got a few questions for our group here. And to ask the first question in coordinating this, it's a real pleasure for me to invite up to the stage. You know, we started our AI stream at Creative Destruction Lab in 2015. And it doesn't sound like that long ago, but to my knowledge, that was, when we started this, it was the first program in the world dedicated to the commercialization of machine intelligence. So that's only 10 years ago, and it feels like the world is flooded with this. There's thousands of programs now. You can't throw a stick without hitting some kind of AI program. But at that time, it was the only one. And it was fortuitous in the sense that we had a computer science department at University of Toronto that was ahead of the curve in this category. And we had a co-founder, Siobhan Zillis. Siobhan co-founded the AI stream with us. She is a leader on the Neuralink team. And Siobhan, also congratulations to you, because for a number of years, you were also on the leadership team of the self-driving group at Tesla, and you guys just launched your robotaxi. So excellent work, and welcome to the stage. All right, so we have 20 minutes, and the first question's yours.
All right. Well, we have 4 people coming at cognition, intent, intelligence from very, very diverse places. And so we thought we would be remiss to not have the opportunity to ask some deep, probing, foundational questions to see kind of what's the same and what's different, even though you guys are coming from very different places. So the first thing I'm most curious about is, you know, if you look at the universe, it was cognitively quiet for a very long time. And then you had this burst of intelligence coming on biological substrate, so our own brains, animal brains. And then just in the last century, you have this explosion of intelligence on a completely different substrate. And we have 4 people sitting here that have very deep backgrounds in both biological and synthetic intelligence. And so the thing I'm wondering about is, what's the most interesting difference between the biological and synthetic neural nets, in your opinion, and what can we learn from that?
I can maybe start. So I think biological neurons are extremely oversimplified when they're simulated in artificial neural nets. So to me, it's like the difference between a cartoon black and white drawing and like an amazing like high definition color image in biology. It's and there are things going on inside a neuron we don't even understand yet, which is why ideas like quantum consciousness can actually be postulated, because we really don't understand what's going on even inside the cell. So to me, that's the biggest difference, is we need to take biology seriously and really understand what's going on inside a biological neuron and then update our AI models based on what we learn.
Do you think we'll end up having more complex neurons in silicon?
I hope so. I think we've got stuck in a local minima at the moment where we've been using the same neuron design for so long, and many people like Hinton and others have tried to kind of let's get a new neuron, but it's never really stuck. So maybe we need to get out of the GPU paradigm and move to something new.
I'll pile on there. I think this is like everyone forgets glial cells. They don't like all the other people that connect stuff, they react to
glial
stuff.
cells.
Microglia cells. Everyone doesn't pay attention to those either. I feel like your comment really builds on what I've been thinking in this regard, is that with our more machine artificial neural networks, our silicon machine systems, we are really sort of maybe careless, but maybe just very, I guess, myopic in how we think about what's an input and what's an output. So if we think about brain regions, we think about biological systems that process and distribute information, what's an input and what's an output is very, very unclear. And I think that is maybe something that's giving some of that massive power and ability to understand and interpret patterns, make predictions, control decisions that we just don't see in our other networks. So I feel like that's one of the key differences that I've observed, is that we really do tend to be very sort of maybe even dogmatic about our inputs and outputs, and maybe we should be less so, and that feels like, yeah, a big difference.
Interesting. Rich?
I really like your question and talking about the universe. And I do feel that there has been a certain form of intelligence, and now there's going to be another form of intelligence. And what's the difference? The difference is that the first one, and I'm trying not to call it life, because our machines are becoming more lifelike and our view of life is becoming more machine-like. So with the first one, its real thing is they are replicators, things that can make copies. We can all make copies of ourselves, by reproduction, and all living things can do that. The new ones are not replicators. They're design systems. The difference between replication as a way of making a new intelligent thing and designing a new intelligent thing. Now, they both have strengths and weaknesses, but the special thing about design things is you can quickly design a new one, and you can get improvements more rapidly. And then, of course, taking it to the limit. Taking it to the limit is when you design things that can actually, that are themselves designers. Okay, and this is what I think AI is. And I think this is the most fundamental first principles distinction.
Yeah, I think some of the biggest differences, I guess two that I will highlight is that biological brain is incredibly energy efficient. There's nothing in silicon that will get us to the amount of power needed to power the brain. It's about 20 watt, 20% of sort of the energy output. Whereas if you look at some of the latest and greatest LLM models, the foundational models, they sometimes take hundreds of megawatts, if not now gigawatt to train.
DJ, fun fact, I think it was about 5 years ago on this stage, I asked the group of AI panelists, what's your kind of most shocking prediction? And Jeff Hinton's was that we would move our compute loads away from synthetic neural nets to somehow moving them to biological-based chips. So, kind of.
Yeah, so there's actually a field called neuromorphic computing that tries to capture some of the more complexities of neural network. And in some ways, I always tell people that we know incredible amount about the brain at a micro level and all the ions that are moving around that causes a neural code that then does some interesting stuff. But also at the same time, we don't know anything about the brain and how these complex network comes intelligence and consciousness. And I also think one of the bigger differences between biological and silicon neural net is if you look at the human brain, it's actually not a great prediction machine. It's a very fuzzy pattern matching generator that somehow navigates in this random chaos. Whereas with silicon neural net, there's a bit more determinism and there's a bit more precision. So maybe that's where a lot of the energy differences come from. Maybe the fact that some of the time scale of learning is more compressed in artificial neural net. I have a 10-month-old and I'm seeing sort of him navigating the world as he's growing, and he definitely does not require the amount of data that silicon neural net does. So there's some kind of beauty in this chaos and fuzziness and compressed data set that we're able to bring in, and in many ways make up the stories to fill in that in our internal monologue, which I think is yet to be seen whether silicon neural nets can do that.
Ajay, I'm just going to add one thing before you ask your question. It was about a year ago, you called me and you told me, and you said, the person who creates AGI is going to have children around the age, DJ, of our children's, sorry, not our collective children, my children and then your children. But I thought that was a very, very interesting point. And you'd said, just watching that emerging neural net and just seeing the way that they are picking up on tasks very quickly, there's going to be something that clicks, and that's going to be the kernel that unlocks AGI. And so I thought that was pretty fascinating.
My question for each of you is, if we project forward in what DJ and his colleagues are building, and he described sort of the futuristic scenario where people go for a lunch break to get upgraded. If we think of people in this room, let's say the average ability of people in the room, so they have full use of their arms and legs, most people, and are able to speak and so on. What do you think will be And all of a sudden, what Neuralink delivers is a pipeline to, let's say in the beginning, it's to AI agents. And let's imagine those agents are whatever we expect them to be 3 years from now. What do you think will be the most salient first upgrade that an average person in the room will experience? DJ, we can start with you, and then go back down the line.
Yeah, it's hard to pick one. I think the value proposition basically is if there is a device that gives you superhuman capabilities, it costs next to nothing, maybe a cost of your iPhone, and you can get that device safely, and you can get upgrades on the firmware to improve whatever that may be in your life. Would you get this device? And in some ways, like, we're already starting to see some evidence of superhuman capabilities with our participant. Just to give you one example, given that the latency, so the delay between capturing the movement intent to the computer is 10 times faster than that signal traveling down your biological spinal cord that then moves the muscles to then actuate a movement. What we're already seeing is evidence where patients are saying, oh, that cursor's moving in the direction before I actually realized that's what I wanted to do. So in some ways, if you kind of think about it in the context of first-person shooter game like you were seeing with Alex playing, it's not even going to be close to a competition to play against someone with the Neuralink, with the fast reaction time that they will have. Would that be the first sort of consumer application? I'm not sure. I know a lot of people will go at severe length to improve their productivity, so I wouldn't discount that. For me personally, I think kind of going to the speech application where you can now have high bandwidth interface with an external tool, and if the bandwidth is fast enough where you're able to store information into this external AI and retrieve this information almost seamlessly, similar to how we do that with two halves of our brains, I would certainly get that device in a heartbeat.
When you mentioned the game, I'm just scanning the audience to see if my son Andreas is here, because he is going to want the Neuralink just for that application. When you think about, and maybe the other three as you're going down the line, we have access to all this stuff through our phone already. So in other words, why would you open up a flap in your skull to put the thing in when you've already got it in the palm of your hand? One answer is, what are the things for which latency gives you a significant lift? Rich, we'll go to you
Or
next.
just a Jay, to think about it another way. If I had told you 20 years ago that you would feel uncomfortable leaving your home without a supercomputer on your body, you'd be like, you're out of your mind. But nobody leaves home without a supercomputer attached to their body anymore. It's just like, it's unthinkable. You would go back home because you'd be like, I can't go about my day without the supercomputer. And so I do think that's a reasonable analogy to kind of think through what the future might look like.
And I guess I'll say this publicly as well. One of the secret project that we have in Neuralink is that one day, once esports becomes part of an Olympic sports, we will have first Neuralink patient get a gold medal. So mark my word.
Yeah, I think that it's simple, that the first thing will be just high bandwidth communication. So you don't have to fiddle, type with your thumbs on your phone or type with your fingers on your keyboard. You can just communicate much more quickly both ways. And that's simply, so it's communication between you and the machine and the computer and the cloud. But I also want to talk about the limit. Like, what is the limit of augmentation? I want to get a drone. I mean, a tail would be good. I think a prehensile tail would be really cool. But like a drone, I'd like to have a drone. But it wouldn't be a drone. It would not. A drone means there's no one behind it. But I want to be behind it, and I want to be able to soar up and see down and fly around through a drone. And that's the augmentation that I want.
I'm going to double down on that, Rich. Say, I think you want a swarm of drones, and I think you want them to be all their own agents, but also connected to you, and you can see with the fly's eyes of 1,000 drones. I'll jump on and say, like, we've built go-go gadget arms. We've built non-physiological devices, like so someone with an amputation could extend their arm out. We have a third arm that comes out of a chest, which is akin to the tail. We've looked at the myoelectric gyre, having a drone that you can control. I'd love all the, like, DJ, I'd love for the first things people augment to be, to use science fiction as an example, more like Molly Millions from William Gibson's Neuromancer, to actually have that really jacked up nervous system to be able to respond faster to the world around them, to be able to predict and control the world more tightly. Honestly, I don't think that's where it's going though. Like, what do I do? Well, okay, the impact to me of having an implant would be that I don't have like repetitive wrist disorder from staring at my phone all the time when I'm trying to read the news or things like that. I honestly feel like we're going to, like you said, memory. We're going to, like, I already have most of my situated cognition from the last like 10 years stored in iCloud. Like, all my iPhotos are a long-term memory that I access regularly. But like the disappointing thing, I think, is what are people going to augment? They're going to augment social media. Like, let's be reasonable. The gargoyles from Snow Crash, like these people that are just like recording the world all around them and spitting it out onto the internet. Yeah, that is probably the most profitable thing that people are going to try to augment very quickly the minute that they get chipped. And they're going to get chipped in all the different places so they can record and stream all of that. And that's going to get them some mad influencer bucks.
Suzanne.
So I'll maybe talk about something that's totally different, just, you know, in the spirit of creativity and thinking outside the box. So I actually think one thing that'll be really popular, but no one will think of it straight away, is we're talking about using these implants to cram more and more and more information into our brain and have like more thoughts and think more quickly. And I think what people want is they want to get rid of all that. Can we use the Neuralink device to do the opposite? Can we use it to remove thoughts, stop the default mode network, slow everything down so people can meditate and actually have better mental health? So could an implant be used to actually remove excess information that's going round and round in our brain and somehow kind of prevent that? And I think that would be much more useful than all these like meditation apps people have on their phone, right? So that's my black swan prediction.
Put the extra thoughts in a closet for later. Siobhan, we have time for one last. You get the last question.
When you feel overwhelmed from all the social media you're imbibing, meditate. Brought to you by no. Sorry, Ajay. You know I'm always gonna have too much fun up here. Okay, if we have one final question, let's go to this. And I'm putting you guys on the spot. I semi-apologize, but what is going to seem very obvious in 10 years that does not seem obvious now?
DJ, you want to start on this one?
Yeah, sure. I think Neuralink device or something like that is going to be everywhere. I think similar to how we see our phones everywhere. Yeah, it's going to be a very different world.
Rich?
So many things.
Your favorite one or two?
No.
Okay, all right, I'll jump in then. Well played, Rich. I'm going to say that I think it's probably already obvious is that what we consider ourself is already a heck of a lot less biological than we expect it to be, or that we believe it to be.
I think we're going to learn a lot more about like how the universe actually connects with who we are, and how physics and the mind and consciousness are all sort of the same thing. So by poking at the brain and trying to understand consciousness, I think we're going to unlock new ideas in foundational physics and foundational science that way.
Rich is back.
I know we're out of time, but I just wanted to leave with a question. Which is, I think we all want to expand consciousness. And how are we going to do it? How are we going to do it? How are we going to get another lobe of our brain or integrate with it? How are we going to expand consciousness? We got to do this thing.
All right. Siobhan, any last comment from you?
Thank you for joining us on the Awesome and Esoteric, and thank you to all of our speakers.